my fellow Americans, are we reaping our harvest of greed? Have we built our house on sinking sand? Why are we being ugly Americans?
Good morning to Weekdays Live. This is CJ Holmes, founder of your host for today's show. And it's a mad scramble in the morning to get all of this information ready and presented. And people have contacted me. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to contact you back yet this morning. But I do want to remind you, everybody now, first thing, tomorrow is Update Friday. So send me your updates, send me your information. I'm going to update you on the stuff that I've been receiving to pass on to the Attorney General's office. I'm getting good information. Keep it coming. That's what we want to do. And today, however, I did get this request, and I want to talk about this first, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the things that are scheduled for our show today. This is comes from Occupy Homes Atlanta, and it's one of my favorite pet peeves, if I have such a thing, and that is these offshore dragons. If you've heard me before, you know what I'm talking about. These are the servicers. They are wholly owned subsidiaries of the mega banks, like Bank of America, wholly owns OCWEN. So then they sell their servicing and loan modification rights to OCWEN. Well, and then obviously so did GMAC. And so here's the point. OCWEN just ignores everything that you've ever been done. So it jerks the homeowner around again. In this particular case, Jacqueline Barber, here's her home, here's the OCWEN CEO, Ronald Faris, here's his phone number and his email. Phone is 561-682-8560. His email is ronald.faris, Faris, at ocwen.com. And these lying companies, it is intentional. The mega banks intentionally set these up, intentionally sold the rights to intentionally cheat and find another way to steal our homes in foreclosure. So here she is, a police detective, a cancer survivor, OCWEN, who she doesn't even know who these people are. They've called her and given her 2 days to get out. So please help Occupy Homes Atlanta, help Jacqueline. And this is what's so outrageously and amazing to me is that they are still foreclosing. I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you an update. I'm going to give you updates all over our country and what is going on, and it's really troubling. And so here we have again these kinds of things that are cheating the homeowners out of their homes at the worst possible time, and just it's outrageous. And of course, the weakest among us are getting hurt the worst. So please take just a minute. Right now, even, you can do this during the show. You can call, you can email, you can say, what kind of hard-hearted person are you? And of course, chances are Ronald doesn't even know this specifically. This is being done by his minions. And remember, the majority of all of these jobs, all of this effort, all of these people that are being employed, most of them are offshore. They're not in the United States. They're going to be in India, the Philippines, all over the world, but not here. And that's why I call them offshore dragons. They have done everything they can possibly dream up to escape law and order. And in the process, they want to cheat every person out of their home. This is a land theft. I've been saying it. Now you have some more proof of it. So please try to help Jacqueline. Let's help Occupy Homes Atlanta. Let's fight for people all over the country because, the theft of one is the theft of all. So today I really wanted to give you some quick updates on our police state. It's actually being discussed right now. Who knew? It's amazing. I think I'm up to date. I'm trying to keep on top of all this stuff. And then I discovered that they're having a Senate hearing on this stuff today. So I'm going to bring that to you. I'm going to bring you a little audio section. We need to understand what is actually going on in our trading, what Wall Street really looks like, because I think many of the images we have in our minds are very obsolete. Also, some facts about gun homicides and suicides. These are facts. Oh, and then more facts. They call it from the Department of Job Lies. And again, I believe that our government is now just flat lying to us. They just said, whatever, we'll stick in whatever numbers we want. Nobody's noticing, nobody cares, we can get away with it. And however, the CFPB, that's the Citizens Financial Bureau of Protection, is asking for input. Consumer, not citizen. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I think maybe I got that wrong. It should be PB. I'm sorry, BB, whatever. They're asking for input. So let's give them some input. And let's tell them what we think, because it turns out most people don't. So what that means is if you and I do, we're loud. It's not being confused with a whole lot of other people saying a whole bunch of stuff. So let's pick these places where we can make a change, and let's go for it. Let's get ourselves to do this. We'll talk about foreclosure filings, but I really, really want to hone in on what is happening. It is now hitting mainstream media. Actually, I think the foreclosure payment fiasco, for the Independent Foreclosure Review, I think that has really caught many folks in the mainstream media. And so we're going to hear what Jon Stewart has to say about it. It's really classic, and thank you guys for sending me the link. And we're going to focus on the fact that now in California, homeowners do have some clout. We're going to talk about a HOBOR, Homeowner Bill of Rights lawsuit, and what that's looking like. It's looking good. So also, I'm going to make another final call about keep sending in your forgery, your foreclosure doc forgery. I'm getting specific requests for every forged signature and every false notarization that you can find. I've made some suggestions and volunteered my services, but in the meantime, let's keep this coming. I do believe this is something that we can nail these people with. They're recorded, they're on record, they can't escape it, and it violates our laws. So let's try to get these lying people, get some justice for the homeowners, and get the liars in prison. Anyway, let's do some real quick update on what's actually happening about our police state, and I think we need to talk about it. The fact is, it's landing in Boston because of the bombings, but you mark my words, if we don't stop it in Boston, it's coming to your city next. And that's the scariest part to me. It is just scary that this is what they're talking about. So here you've got a police commissioner calling for a police state. Well, maybe you can listen to what he says, but I think, they're calling for tighter controls. So that is the point.
Hours, the first hearings into the attack on the Boston Marathon will be getting underway.
And the Eye Opener's Emily Reamer joining us now live near the bombing site with tough questions, Emily, expected to be asked today in D.C. You're right, Bianca. Now, the memorial here honors those hurt and killed that day, but now Washington lawmakers want answers about not only what happened at the marathon, but what information authorities may have received before the attack and whether or not it was handled properly.
We're going to learn a lot of lessons from this.
Boston's Police Commissioner Ed Davis will testify at a congressional committee this morning about the marathon bombings. He believes his department was prepared for anything.
Facts and circumstances of who knew what at one time are playing themselves out, and we don't have the final report on that. But to date, I'm satisfied with what's happened.
Davis also plans to tell lawmakers security should be tighter at public events like the marathon, with more police on the ground and more surveillance cameras capturing what's happening. In his prepared remarks, Davis says these efforts are not intended to chill or stifle free speech. Images from cameras do not lie. They do not forget. Remember that investigators used surveillance video from a restaurant just down the road to help identify those bombing suspects. Davis goes in front of that committee at 9 a.m. this morning. Live in Copley Square, Emily Reamer, WCVB News Center 5.
All right,
All right, so they're having a hearing today. That's the first thing that we need to know about. And then here's another top cop in Boston warning against the police state. He says, I do not endorse surveillance cameras attached to every light pole in the city. So you can read both of these articles. The links will be there after the show, of course. And I wanted to actually show you a little bit more about some pictures of the police state that we're facing. We saw some interviews yesterday, so I'm not going to play this whole thing. Some of them are the interviews from yesterday. Some are other interviews. You're welcome to watch them. But I do believe, and of course, what is causing this response in particular is that a host on MSNBC actually lied about Watertown martial law. Actually said nobody was pointing guns. They didn't have martial law.
I'm David Knight with InfoWars Nightly News. Now, recently, Ron Paul was on the Alex Jones Show, and he expressed concern about the way the police conducted themselves. He had some pretty strong language. He called it martial law, and we agree.
Governments are supposed to protect our liberties. Once they decide they're going to make us safe, economically and physically safe, they can only do this by taking away our liberties. Those pictures really concern me. That is such a visual image when you see thousands and thousands of troops, and they weren't your local friendly policemen that were involved. I mean, can you imagine all these people being locked? They became prisoners. It was accepted too easily. It was martial law.
But Lawrence O'Donnell took exception to that, and he very strongly called Ron Paul a liar repeatedly on his show for what he said about the way the police conducted themselves, going house to house, pointing guns at people in windows in houses, dragging them out of their houses at gunpoint, going down the streets in armored personnel carriers with full police riot gear.
Wait, I want to show pictures first, and then I want to show some of the pictures of the Boston police, okay? Look at this. I mean, if this is what you have, why don't you invade a country? Show some of the other ones. I mean, go up to Canada, take their oil. Look at these. These are half tracks. I don't care what you might want to call it, an urban assault vehicle, but this country is becoming a police state, and it is very troubling to me.
We believe that's very excessive. We believe that that is setting a template for martial law to be gradually eased in, and so does Ron Paul. But Lawrence O'Donnell called him a liar. He said from the very beginning to say that this was forced is a lie, that the governor was just simply telling people to shelter in place, and it was a suggestion.
Police don't need warrants. Families thrown out of their homes at gunpoint to be searched without probable cause. No guns were pointed at any families. What a vile lie. There were no tanks and there were no police pointing their weapons at innocent citizens.
Well, when the government points a gun at you and suggests that you do something, we call that force. And they may call it something else, but they're just playing with semantics. We wanted to...
The rest of that is about the interviews. A couple we've seen, several we haven't. Bottom line is, it's just more of the same. They pointed their guns at all these people. It was not the police. It's some military. I'm not even sure who these people were. And they had weapons and guns, and it was an urban assault. And calling it anything else, like he said, is just semantics. I believe that this is really, really dangerous. I think that, again, foreclosures and evicting people with tanks and SWAT, which we've caught videos of, they're evicting foreclosure. They take the house, they steal the house, and then they kick out the people using SWAT in this country is just shocking and amazing. And truly, this police state that's coming on us, we need to really fight back on this. And the foreclosure issues are just a symptom of the same corrupt cartel. It's all about the money. Like when I heard somebody say yesterday, it's about the Benjamins. And that is the point. The banks are buying off the government, and the banks and all of the commercial interests are aligning against the people because we're just dollar signs. I've been suggesting that maybe every one of us just walk around with a dollar sign hanging on our faces because that's all they view us as. We're just dollars to them. They don't care anything about your life, your dreams, your goals, your assets, other than the fact they can take them. This is truly a dangerous situation. I want to keep bringing it to your attention. But, and I don't think I'm going to play much of this. Well, a little. This is a flash crash. This is here's the facts. They're talking about, and I don't want to play the whole thing, but they're talking about the fact that trading, Wall Street trading, the trading floor, it's not what we think. It is computerized, it's algorithmic, it is nanosecond technology. It's just truly amazing who can get there a nanosecond faster. I'll play a little bit.
What I think is pretty accurate. 15 milliseconds. But say you're in Chicago, oil goes up, you know it, and you can get to New York in 14 milliseconds. Well, you've got 1 millisecond where you know the future. You know exactly what's going to happen. You're not even betting at this point. This is easy money.
So what happened over time was a race of people to provide the straightest fiber line between Chicago and New York.
That's Mike Beller again from TradeWorks. He's part of this race.
A couple of years ago, a company came along.
Not his, unfortunately.
And spent some 8-figure sum to cut a straighter fiber line between those 2 points. And
according to some reports, they blew through a mountain to do it.
They did a lot. And where the state of the art for communication lines at the time between the 2 locations was about 15.5 milliseconds. They came along and they made that state-of-the-art 13.3 milliseconds.
A savings of about 1 millisecond each way.
Which is just a eon.
It's a thousandth of a second you're talking about. That's not an eon.
Well, it's an eon when your computer system is able to make a decision in 10 microseconds, which ours are.
That's 10 times faster.
So your computer's like, I could do this so fast, but I'm just waiting for the news from Chicago.
So a lot of us were sitting around thinking, what can we do about this?
Turns out there was a way to get from Chicago to New York a little faster because the speed of light through air, it's a little faster than when you're going through a fiber optic cable. And so what they're doing now is they're building a series of towers so they can beam the signal through the air from one tower to the next tower to the next tower, all the way from Chicago to New York.
And that would bring the travel time down to about?
In the neighborhood of around 8.5 milliseconds.
So you're going from 13 to 8.5?
Yeah.
That would be going from this to this. I mean, come on.
That's a lot of potential savings.
I can totally hear the difference.
Is it helping? Are we fast enough now? Can we stop?
Here's the thing.
That's Manoj Narang, the CEO of TradeWorks. He joined us for part of the interview, and he told us, actually, we would love to stop this arms race.
Yeah, absolutely. The arms race is a huge drain on resources.
But he says we just can't.
As it stands, when a new technology comes out that makes it possible to be faster, if I don't adopt it and my competitors do, I will lose out to them. I have to do it.
And looking at Manoj in particular, you could kind of tell at this part of the job.
It's just like the plumbing.
Yeah, it just kind of makes him weary.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't care less.
Why not just call a truce and everyone say, we're not going to try and go faster. We're already way faster than any human can think. It's fast enough. We're going to stop.
Why not call a truce? Because there's a such thing in game theory called prisoner's dilemma. And
someone will cheat, you're saying, basically.
Yeah. You can't put a gun to everyone's head and force them to abide by this truce.
Even though we'd all be better off if you could.
Well, who would be better off?
And here Manoj told us, look, even though this speed race sucks for us, it's actually helping you. Because on a basic level, anytime you replace a human with a computer, things are going to get faster, they're going to get cheaper, and now that the machines are competing, getting cheaper still. In 1992, it would have cost you about $100 to trade 1,000 shares. Now, $10.
So yes, humans have been completely supplanted when it comes to short-term trading. And humans who complain about that are being disingenuous, okay? They have not been displaced by anything other than the fact that they can't compete.
You seem like you seem defensive.
Well, just because I can explain the economics of the business doesn't make me defensive.
That also sounded defensive.
If Manoj did sound defensive, it's only because he and Mike and everyone in their industry have had to answer a lot of questions over the past few years about where all this speed is taking us. And those questions always come back to one particular day, May 6, 2010, when things got a little fruity.
We hadn't had a down day in a long while. The market had been slowly creeping up for quite a while.
That's Eric Hunsander again, the analyst who's been tracking high-frequency trading. He says that day, even though things had been going really well...
That day it started off down pretty hard.
Which made some sense because there was bad news coming out of Athens, people were nervous. But then, at a very specific moment, 2:42 in the afternoon...
14:42 and 44 seconds.
All hell breaks loose.
Okay, Neil, let me just interrupt for a second because this market is dropping precipitously. It just went negative 500. It is now negative 560.
8 even offer, 7 even offer, 6 halves are trading here now, 6 even are trading.
They can see it on the screen. The Dow is losing about 653 points. Now Dow is down 707 points.
81 even are trading here now. There's 79 are trading.
Boom, there it goes. Look at this market. It continues to slide.
Look at it, 835. This is the widest we have seen it in years.
Now it's down 900.
Wow, almost 1,000 points. This will blow people out in a big way like you won't believe. Cancel all orders. Down 1,000 points. Cancel all orders.
At 2:45 and 27 seconds, an emergency circuit breaker shuts off.
For 5 seconds. And that was the end of the slide. When it went out and stopped for 5 seconds, that was the bottom of the market.
1,000 points down, several $100 billion vanished.
2.5 minutes.
Equally weird, when trading started again, the markets bounced right back up.
About 2.5 minutes later, it was 600 points higher than the bottom.
It was like, boom, boing. Now, these kind of swings had happened before, but never that fast. And the speed is one thing. Arguably, what's more troubling is that we still, 2.5 years later, don't really know what happened. I mean, the SEC investigated for months, released this giant 84-page report where they essentially blamed the whole thing on one bad algorithm. That this guy in New York was trying to sell a bunch of stocks, told his computer to do it. His computer just did it a little too aggressively.
No, that's not how it went down at all.
Eric doesn't agree. He thinks what happened is that all the high-frequency computers just clogged the network.
Really, the cause of the flash crash was system overload.
Because he says a basic feature of these computer algorithms is when they detect that the network is slow, they pull out.
You know, one of the maxims on the street is, when in doubt, stay out or pull out.
And so if you've got this one computer selling a ton of stock and no computers left to buy, that creates a vacuum.
Now, there were people who argued that high-frequency trading had actually made the situation better.
Because, you know, Andrew says the markets did bounce back.
Right up to the top.
The computers self-corrected, perhaps.
But the point is, nobody had any idea.
And that's what gets him. That we're in a situation now where when things go wrong, they go wrong in the blink of an eye. And then it takes us years to figure out what happened?
The question that comes up is, have we crossed some kind of Rubicon where we've passed into a realm where the complexity, speed, the volume of all of this stuff makes it no longer human readable. We just don't know what the system is doing and can't, in principle, find out when things go wrong.
There you have it. This is why we are on the brink of the house of cards just tumbling. Nobody knows. It's faster than the speed of light, almost. Certainly faster than anybody can actually do anything about it. And I do believe he's right. I think we've passed into the era of we're just sitting on a time bomb. And at some point, something will happen. And people may never, ever be able to figure it out. This is our markets. This is what the markets are about now. I really think you needed to understand that. And I think everybody in this country needs to understand that. Maybe that's why there's so much cash going into real estate. They're saying, whoa, I am out of that market. And of course, we know the market is going up and up and up. We also know it's all computer traded. We also know that central banks are buying equities. So, you know, enough said. Protect yourself. And let me remind you one more time that if you have stocks and bonds and they are not being held in your name, then you are just simply the beneficiary and the Federal Reserve owns them and can take them at will. So I would definitely recommend that you review your accounts. We've talked about this before. You can actually sort through now my page, the page of all the links that I've uploaded last Friday, and I'll upload after every Friday's show now for the whole week, where you can search for every link. And remember, it's D, dog, T, Tom, C, cat, C, cat. DTCC. You search for that and you watch those links. If you have any stocks or bonds, you pay attention to that information. All right, moving on. This was a fascinating piece of information that Americans, we've been convinced, we have, that gun homicides are just way up. That's why we need all this police state. We need to protect against the terrorists and protect against those crazy people. And we need to, there's gun deaths all the time. And actually, there's been a huge plunge, and these are the numbers. You can read them. But firearm-related homicides declined 39% from 1993 to 2011. So let's look at the facts and let's start to adjust what we think based on the facts rather than just what we're told. Here's some more information. They call it from the Department of Lies. This is about job numbers. And this is basically saying that what the numbers stated, the week ending May 4, the advance figure for seasonally adjusted initial claims was 323,000, a decrease of 4,000 from the previous week's revised figure of 327,000. They talk about the 4-week moving average. This guy says, unadjusted was actually under 300,000 though, so perhaps it's real. In other words, who knows? Who knows what is real anymore? Who knows what you can trust? And so he's looking at the table. You can read the rest of this information, but the fact remains, it's a real clear message, just like in foreclosures. Let's start looking at true facts. Let's find those documents. Let's look and see if there's any validity to them on the foreclosure documents. Again, on the job numbers, let's question everything we're told. Because if we don't, I'm afraid we're going to be scammed. Now, here is the input from the CFPB. Yep, you're right, I typed it wrong. Protection Bureau, about second thoughts about restricting credit insurance financing. And really, the summary is the CFPB is proposing a prohibition. That means not allowing insurance companies to finance the premiums. Now, that means for home insurance, many of you either do one of two things, three things. One, you've either got it as a part of your monthly payment to your loan. It's the principal, interest, and a prorated amount for taxes and a prorated amount for insurance that you make on a monthly payment. And then that goes into what they call impound accounts, and the bank servicer is supposed to, at the time those insurance or taxes are due, pay them. And of course, this is where they're gaming a lot of the people and pushing them into foreclosure because they don't pay them. They keep the money. They don't apply it correctly. You name it. But either you're doing that, or sometimes insurance is allowed, the insurance company will allow you to make monthly payments. And you pay a little more, $4, $8 charge, sometimes more, if you want to make monthly payments instead of one lump sum. And the CFPB is thinking about stopping that practice. So of course there's some discussion, and in this article, which you can read, they say, well, we've hardly heard from anybody. So let's start making a connection with the CFPB about this. Let's try to see if there's some way that we can be told when they're looking for input. Let's think about doing this for every agency. Let's focus on giving getting a connection in some way, shape, or form with various agencies that we could give input on. Considering most people aren't doing it, that is maybe how we can get a megaphone for our voices. It was a thought. I just wanted to put it out there for you. Now, suicides. This is really sad, bad news, but not surprising. And this is from 1999 to 2010, the suicide rate among citizens, U.S. citizens, between 35 and 64. So these are the key homeowners being foreclosed, as we know. It grew by 30% to 17.6 deaths per 100,000 people. And this is the really scary number. Suicide now ranks higher than death by automobile. Used to be car crashes were by far the largest loss of life. But in 2010, there were 33,000 plus deaths from motor vehicle crashes compared with 38,000 suicides. And I do understand the despair, the outrageous injustice. Look at what we've already just talked about today. Look at the issues that are facing us. And these are truly scary and somewhat depressing issues, but I tell you, we are up to it. We need to recognize that this is an opportunity. Yes, they're coming down with these lying foreclosures and police state effort, but we have an opportunity. It's getting bad enough that others are starting to rise up. We have an opportunity to shift the paradigm. So please help those that you know that might be discouraged. It really touches me, and I know many people that have actually said to me, maybe if I killed myself they'd pay attention. And I'm sorry, but I don't think they would. I don't think that's a solution. I think that's what they want. I think that staying alive and fighting back is what they don't want. So that's what we need to do. And we need to encourage our family, friends, and neighbors to do that. Sorry. And of course, here's more good opportunity news. Despite the decline, foreclosures are increasing. So here's Realty Track, and I don't really argue with their numbers. And the fact is that annual increases were noted in 15 of the 26 judicial or quasi-judicial states. So they're still trying to foreclose. And I'm telling you, people don't know about this. I'm showing a house to a buyer yesterday. We get to talking about prices. And I said, well, they're still taking houses back. And she said, they are? I thought they stopped that. So we need to get the news out. Not only are they taking houses back, they're going to continue to take houses back. They've got 12 million more houses in their line of sight because these are all the upside down properties. Everything that was on a securitized loan and in MERS or a MERS lookalike database is on track to be foreclosed. So even those judges, last week, Jean shared with us all of these judges that had MERS loans. You mark my words, at some point they're going to lose their house, and then it's going to make a difference what they've been ruling in court. Up till then, it's like, well, it's not me. The fact is, it's everybody. And this is something people don't understand or don't want to think about. And that is the unfortunate truth. I really, really hope I'm wrong. I hope later you can say, that CJ, she's just making stuff up. But it's a natural and logical conclusion that when they start foreclosing, look, they game the system. I already told you how they game it with the impound accounts. They game it with OCWEN. They just sell it to another servicer, and then OCWEN says, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about GMAC. Doesn't matter what you said with them. Doesn't apply to me. That's outrageous. And if you're in this state, California, it now makes a difference. But in other states, you'd have to look at the laws. And this is the trouble. Here we go again. It's a state-by-state fight back. And the people just get ground up and lost in the middle. But this is something that's really positive because it's bringing it into the consciousness of the country. Thank you, Jon Stewart.
Moving on! Good on you.
From crushing spiders to crushing dreams. Is that really the segue we're going to go with? You know, we hear this all the time. The government's so stupid. The free market should run the country. Ayn Rand's the best author ever. I can't wait till my senior year. You know. But did you know the public sector has no monopoly on ruining everything?
Between 2009 and 2010, foreclosure proceedings that were wrongful or in some way contained bank error commenced against nearly 4 million homeowners.
So it's 4 million. It's only 2 million homes a year. And this is the private sector doing this. I'm sure it's easy for them to track the paperwork of the mortgages and correct the errors.
It used to be that the paperwork tracking mortgages was easy to find, filed at a local recorder's office.
And remains so today. That is your story, is it not? Since that system was working and people were very happy with it?
But more than a decade ago, big mortgage lenders set up their own alternative system. It's called MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Registration System.
You're kidding me! So these 4 million foreclosure problems, this was no accident. This was... MERS. All right. So it was MERS. How does MERS work?
Instead of filing papers at a local courthouse, mortgage changes are simply registered inside the MERS computer. But with no official paper trail, lenders are now scrambling to produce documents to prove they have the right to foreclose.
Yes, it turned out the big banks didn't enjoy filling out paperwork. For every single mortgage, they wanted to reassign or securitize. So they formed a consortium, mortgage dumpster, if you will, that would allow them these mortgages to trade electronically within this corporation they were all shareholders of. Think of it as a key party. But instead of your wife, they lose track of the deed to your house. But fear not. Fear not. Fear not, my spider-phobic friends. I'm sure there's a better name for that, but I don't know. Arachnophobia, right? Fear not. This type of inevitable free market overreach is why the government must maintain its watchdog status. Go get 'em, boys.
The Office of Controller of Currency, the OCC.
Oh, yeah! You down with OCC? Yeah! The Office of the Controller of the Currency? Because they sprung into action to determine which homes were being foreclosed upon inappropriately.
The independent foreclosure review was essentially having banks hire independent consultants who are on bank payrolls to look at the bank's own records.
We are alone.
The whole thing was so badly conceived from the beginning, again, that the OCC finally said, we give up.
Abandoned for being too complicated and for helping almost no one.
Which is coincidentally the OCC's motto. So ultimately, like, you down with OCC? So ultimately, like most incredibly complicated and extremely destructive financial scandals, the perpetrators went to jail. Went to jail! I am a card! I am a riot! They pulled trillions out of the economy and they went to jail! What I meant to say is they went to the Caribbean. They went to the Caribbean after paying an inadequate and completely arbitrary settlement of $9 billion. No, seriously. They admitted it was completely arbitrary.
To estimate the number would have required, with more precision, would have required additional delay in providing.
But it doesn't mean you pick a number out of the air.
Oh, really? What's wrong, Senator? Don't you like magic? I'm sorry, that actually was supposed to be a number. And I have terrible allergies, so put those down there. But you know what? 9 billion was the perfect number because it's a big enough number to impress consumers, but a small enough number to teach the banks no lesson whatsoever. And it's incredibly dividable enough to be meaningless.
Our viewers are looking at a full screen right here about what victims are going to get.
Not much.
60%, as you said, will get $300.
Woo! $300, which is good if the home you lost is on the 16th hole of a miniature golf course. But with all that, with everything that happened, with free market incompetence coupled by government irregulation, they top it all off with one final kick to the homeowner's nuts.
Government-issued checks to homeowners are bouncing.
So that's why this guy's picture is up behind the register at the bodega. We'll be right back.
I love it. I love it. He did well, and he got the key points out. And this is what needs to happen to start helping the public understand the whole thing is a scam and a half. And then we need to start those criminal prosecutions when he's laughing. It's such a joke that they pull trillions out of the economy, they ruin the economy, they steal the homes. The OCC says, whoa, it's too complicated and I can't do anything about it. And nobody gets prosecuted. So let me remind again, since I'm going to just jump right now to this page. We still want all the violations. Please, if you have forgery on your documents, you have an audit that talks about it, you have anything basically in any state, because I'll forward it to the correct states, but particularly in California, because the Attorney General's office has staff and they are reviewing this and they are interacting with me on it, and I am forwarding them email after email after email. And so send me your stuff, let me get it over to the office, and let's keep their feet to the fire. Also, let's keep demanding a statewide grand jury investigation. If you haven't called yet to demand, called one of these numbers or send an email demanding a statewide grand jury on forgery and fraudulent foreclosures, please do so. File an online complaint, oag@ca.gov. That's a website. And let's try to continue to push. That would be huge breaking news for the people. Now, I wanted to show you, and this is a real plus, that California Homeowner Bill of Rights blocks a B of A foreclosure. Now, we've been talking about the HOBOR, the rules, and what things were changed. And one of the major changes is that it gives the homeowner the right to collect attorney's fees. And that puts the banks at a disadvantage if they lose. The other issue is that it forces discovery. I think that is fabulous. So in this article, here's a man, and the next link I'm going to show you is the lawsuit. The California man successfully halted a foreclosure sale on his property against B of A, and of course Recon Trust was foreclosing. That's B of A's minion. Actually, Recon Trust is a bank. Who knew? And it's a wholly owned subsidiary by B of A too, by the way. And so Recon Trust is foreclosing, and for simply obtaining the HOBOR injunction, the homeowner's attorney is requesting $20,000, and the compensation request is permissible. See, that's the new rules. And this attorney, Attorney Robert Jackson with Jackson Associates, says the injunction alone may cost B of A and Recon Trust upwards of $60,000 when they have to look at attorneys' fees on both sides. But here is the biggest issue. Trust me, it's not the money cost. I am positive it's not the money cost, because what's at cost is right down here at the bottom, it says, under HOBOR, the injunction is in place until B of A proves, see, it puts the proof on their side, that they didn't violate HOBOR to the satisfaction of the court. And they have to file an answer, and they have to produce evidence that they are in compliance before this case can go on. Now, the evidence that they have to produce, because HOBOR included in it that the evidence is every foreclosure document, notice of default, notice of sale, all of those documents have to be based on accurate and complete and reliable evidence. And of course, you and I know this is why they're forging the documents. They don't have it. So this is what I love about this. I believe, and I think that the incident that was a couple of weeks ago I shared with you, some lady emails me in the morning, I'm trying to prepare for the show, her foreclosure auction is that day, and I'm telling her to write a letter to put in writing and get it to the legal department of the foreclosure trustee, I don't even remember which one it was, and threaten them with the wrongful foreclosure that each entity, so that would be, in this case, B of A, probably a servicer like OCWEN, they didn't mention it here, and Recon Trust, all three of them would be individually and severally liable for wrongful foreclosure under the new California law. And her auction was postponed. So I believe that we can write threatening letters and maybe get some recourse out of it. So if you have an auction, if you have a friend, family member, neighbor, anybody that contacts you that has an auction scheduled for their property, help them write a letter stating that we'll file for wrongful foreclosure, we'll get an injunction. See, copy this link. We'll get an injunction. You're going to have to stand in front of the court now and prove you have the right to foreclose, and we know you don't, because you won't answer my qualified written request, you won't show me who owns the note, everything you send to me is a lie, and see if you can get some more time and leverage out of that. That's my encouragement. So here's the link. There's several of the articles. This is from Housing Wire. And then here is the link that I'll be sharing with you also on the comments right after the show. And this is the docket. This was filed April 15, and today is the 9. So that is about 3 weeks. Let's use this. Let's use this. The people need some justice. They need some delay until the attorney generals and the criminal prosecutions can start. I swear to you, we're not going to rest until they start. So what we need to do, everybody needs to do, is try to delay and stay, but not like what I'm going to show you next, maybe, because I'm going to end here in just a minute. And we're going to talk about the fact that there may be another way to delay, but watch out. You might still lose your rights, and you may not have to do this. So here's this article. This is really, really good news. The Homeowner Bill of Rights had enough teeth in it that we're able to use them. And never forget, it was the Association of Realtors, California Association of Realtors, CAR, bragged in front of me that they gutted the first Homeowner Bill of Rights. Now, the first one would have done like Nevada. You file a false document and we find that, we're going to go send you to prison. And they just said, whoa! And they fought against the people. I'm really outraged. I told them how outraged I am. Wow. So this is what happens when you're just the people, when you're just the 99%. That's why we have to unite and combine. So here is another solution. Interestingly enough, this is from, I believe again, B of A. They're doing a pilot project, and the key is how can they, if they can't prove they own the loan? And the trouble is, people aren't getting a good enough leverage against the banks to make something like this just disappear. So let's listen to it, then we'll do a little brief discussion about what they're actually doing and what we think about it.
Bank of America rolling out a pilot program that will offer rentals as a foreclosure alternative. Here for a Squawk on the Street exclusive, Ron Stutzenegger is Legacy Asset Servicing Executive for Bank of America, and our Diana Olick also listening in. Thank you so much for joining us, Ron. Good to talk to you.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
A lot of chatter and intrigue about the program today. Not a lot of homeowners here able to take part. Obviously a narrow pilot program with a lot of conditions. How broad-based could this eventually become, and do you think it is a real solution to what housing's facing right now?
I'll say it's another solution to housing. Listen, we need to do everything we can to keep our customers in their homes. Any way we can avoid foreclosure. So as you know, first we offer a number of modification programs, but when these customers don't qualify for a modification, the next alternative is some other sort of foreclosure avoidance process. And we think converting borrowers and customers to tenants is one way to avoid the foreclosure process. I realize it's limited right now, but if it goes well, we hope to extend it as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask one thing also. How do you know that so many of these borrowers are going to be interested in renting a home that they've owned for so long and then goes into foreclosure? Because the timelines for foreclosure have been so long, especially in New York State where your pilot program is starting. It can go up to 3 years of sitting in your house without paying a mortgage payment. Do you think everybody's really going to want to get in on this program if they can really pay nothing for a long time?
Well, Diana, that's why it's a pilot program. We're going to go out and test that theory. Again, we've identified these 1,000 people in the 3 states, Nevada, Arizona, and New York. Each one of those different states has a different legal environment in which the foreclosure process takes various amounts of time. And we're really going to go out and test in each of those different states whether or not the customer is more interested in remaining in their home through a tenant situation versus waiting out the process of foreclosure.
Ron, you say about 1,000 will be invited to participate in the first phase of the pilot, but you guys must have an idea of how many homeowners out there might be eligible or might be interested. How large could that number be?
Well, I know how many could be eligible. I won't predict the number, but there is a number of people who would be eligible. What I really don't know is how many will be interested. And that really is the purpose of the pilot program. Again, the reason we've identified these 1,000 is because they're 90 days behind on their current mortgage. They are in the foreclosure process already, so they generally know the direction they're heading. And we're trying to contact them and say, would you like to avoid foreclosure by becoming a tenant? And remember, it's our thought that the logical person to stay in their home is the current borrower. Remember, if they do get foreclosed upon and are forced to find other alternative housing, they're probably going to rent a house, a single family, typically in the same neighborhood. They're going to pay market rent for that property. Why not just keep them in their existing home and put them in as a tenant at today's market rates?
Now, Ron, you've said that folks at Bank of America have told me last night that they don't want to be in the landlord business for very long, that this is very temporary, that you want to get investors in. Is it going to be buying the mortgages? Is it going to be buying the actual properties? And then how do you determine how they're going to manage these properties once investors buy these from you?
Yeah, so let's start off. We do not want to be in the landlord business long term. The reason we're doing this as a pilot program is to see how much take we get, how many customers would be interested in staying in their homes through this process. If we get substantial take up on it, we will be in the process of selling those homes, but we're going to now sell them instead of an empty REO, which a lot of the investors are buying right now. We're going to be selling them a home with a borrower in place, with current cash flow in place, and we're going to ultimately giving those same investors who come on your show and say they're very interested in investing in rented single-family homes, we'll actually be able to deliver them a rented home as opposed to an empty home. We'll put a customer who is now a tenant in place instead of them going out and having an empty home when they get it and finding that tenant.
Finally, Ron, this simple question. Who takes the call when the renter, in this case, and a former homeowner, now renter, calls and says the toilet's broken or there's some problem with the property? I mean, rental management is not historically what Bank of America has been expert at.
Right. So right now, through the foreclosure process, quite frequently we take back a property. It already has a tenant in it. The current borrower has actually rented the property. So by necessity, we have been in the management of rental property business. That's not where we want to be long term. So we will manage them in the interim through different vendors and different contractors in various markets. So this 1,000, that's how we will do it. But back to Diana's point, the investors who are coming in and saying we want to get into the single-family rental business, they are all in the process of building up staff, trying to determine how to operationalize this on scale. So again, once we start to build up these homes, if the pilot goes the way we would like it to go, we will be delivering those rented homes to people who can then manage them going forward.
Well, please keep us posted. It's gotten a lot of people's attention today. Ron, thank you for your time. And Diana, thanks to you too as well. Diana Olick in Washington.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So, interestingly enough, did you hear what I heard? And what I heard was they can't afford the loan mod, but they could afford the rental. So then my first question is, well, if that's the case, why don't you just make the loan mod price the rental price? The second question, of course, arises, does B of A actually own the loan? See, they don't. They're scamming these people. Did you hear what they said? It's in Nevada, Arizona, and New York, and they said they're 90 days behind. Now, we already have seen the facts over and over and over, and that is many people are staying in their homes. They brought it up in this little interview. They're staying in their home for years for free. And so the foreclosure process is not 90 days. Give me a break. The foreclosure process is more like 2-3 years. So they're taking people that don't understand that. They're going to try to snag them. This is my humble opinion. They're going to snag and bag them. They're going to snag them because they're behind. These people are stressed. They know nothing about the foreclosure process. They have not connected with you or me or anybody else, any occupier, or anybody else on the web that knows anything about foreclosures. So they will buy into what the bank says. And they said, did you hear what he said? They're already in the foreclosure process. Well, probably not. Because if you're actually in the process, that means they filed a notice of default. We know in Nevada they can't file a notice of default without an affidavit. So probably not in Nevada. And so they're going to lie to these people. They're going to scare them out of home ownership illegally, my humble opinion. They're going to tell them whatever they think it takes to get these people to sign over the deeds. They're going to try to scare these people out of their homes, turn them into renters. And of course, it's a no-brainer why B of A wants to have the person they're renting. They've now got investors lined up, and they're selling these empty homes, obviously, because he's commented about that. They're selling the homes empty to investors. They could get a higher price if there was a tenant already there. And so, especially if it's a long-term tenant. And if they've only been 90 days behind, then they can probably still afford the payments, right? They're not years and years behind, which would be a little tougher sell for the investors. So just look at it from B of A's viewpoint. They're saying, gee, why don't we snag and bag those people that don't know what's going on, don't understand that we don't have the authority to do this. We're going to just get them, we're going to connive to get them to give up their deeds. They're just going to sign over the deeds to us. And then we can sell these homes at much higher prices to investors. And maybe we'll look like good people. We're trying to keep people in their homes. And I say it's just another underhanded, sneaky way to steal the house from the homeowner, because the actual fact is, if they can rent it to them, which obviously implies that the loan, no matter what amount it is going to be negated. Somebody's going to take a hit for that. And of course, you and I already know that the FDIC, Fannie, Freddie already took a hit by paying off the securitized trusts with insurance. And so there isn't anybody to pay. That's why we keep saying when they foreclose, they get a free house, they get more money. And if anybody should get the free house, it's the owner who's been making payments all these years, interest only often, and done improvements to the house. So if somebody's going to get a free house, why don't the owners get the free house instead of the banks? Nevertheless, here's the latest and greatest little sneaky scam from the masters of fraud, and that would be Bank of America. It's no surprise that this stuff is coming out of these people. It's just truly amazing to me. And I'm telling you, I can't scam them because I don't think like that. But listening to what they say, I can analyze these scams, and real quick we're catching on. They're really what they're going to try to do is take these homes. Remember I told you just earlier today, they've got all the MERS loans. There were 72 million. I think there's 40 million left that they haven't foreclosed or refinanced out of the MERS. Of course, they're resecuritizing, but nevertheless, we're talking about the old loans, if you will, from 2000 to 2007 in there. And they're going to come after all of them because none of them had the paperwork done right. And so if they can get a good, media hit by keeping people in their homes, and then they've just stolen them prior to foreclosure, then they don't have to face the laws that have been set up to say, wait, you don't have the right to do this. So we need to really get it out to our media that if they can't do a loan mod for this person so they can keep the house as the owner, then they shouldn't be allowed to snag them or threaten them or scare them into giving up the deed to the house just by threatening foreclosure, because that's called extortion. And that's exactly what I believe B of A is doing. They're trying to sugarcoat it, but the more the media understands that this is an extortion program and starts questioning the banks in that manner, the more we can protect the people and have them keep their homes as owners. You and I already know that they've been lying to them about the loan mod. They just lie to you. They just say no. And that's why in California, let's never forget, HOBOR, Homeowner Bill of Rights, if they deny you the loan mod, you appeal. You have the appeal rights, and they have to reanalyze your data. And when they deny you, you appeal that again. Remember, delay and stay is the name of the game. And of course, I just love this because it's actually another way to bugger them. Let's bugger them. Bugger until we get some clout for prosecutions. I want 3 hots and a cot for these guys, and I know you do too. Thanks. Update Friday tomorrow. Send me your updates. Don't forget. Talk to you soon.
They taught me to fight for my civil rights, but it's always the same old story. The rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're measured from every direction.
The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax, with nary a moment's reflection. Where there's brass, there's muck, and they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you. Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent by loitering